It's alive now.
So, should we begin, sir?
Yes, sir. We are live already. We are live already. Okay.
Okay.
Shoykot will introduce that.
Right.
Okay.
Right. So, could you ask the student at the background to just move aside a bit? You, sir. Yeah, right. Okay. Good afternoon, everyone, and a very warm welcome to all of you listening to us live on YouTube or on Facebook on this very special occasion today, in which we are absolutely honored to have amongst us Professor G.N Devy, a renowned cultural critique of India, and two of the noted academicians of our West Bengal, Professor Sankar Prasad and Professor Indranil Acharya, will be in conversation with them. So this is a very special day for us, the people associated with Midnapore College, to have amongst us such a renowned personality. We are going to formally introduce them, though they do not need introductions. But before handing the microphone over to them, just there is one thing that I would like to add, that if you have any question, Professor Devy will be happy to take them. Just write down your questions at the comment box by the YouTube or Facebook. Then we are going to forward the questions to Professor Devy and he will be answering them. So let me now have the honor to introduce our guests today. We are going to begin with our renowned or our esteemed guest, Dr. G.N Devy, who is a thinker, cultural activist, and an institution builder, best known for the People's Linguistic Survey of India and the Adivasi Akademi created by him. He writes in 3 languages, Marathi, Gujarati, and English. His first full-length book in English, After Amnesia, 1992, was hailed immediately upon its publication as a classic in literary theory. Since its publication, he has written and edited close to 90 influential books in areas as diverse as literary criticism, anthropology, education, linguistics, and philosophy. G.N Devy was educated at Shivaji University, Kolhapur, and the University of Leeds, UK. Among his many academic assignments, he had fellowships at Leeds University and Yale University, and has been THB Simons Fellow and Jawaharlal Nehru Fellow. He was Professor of English at the Maharaja Sayajirao University of Baroda. In 1996, he gave up his academic career in order to initiate work with the denotified and nomadic tribes and Adivasis. During this work, he created the Bhasha Research and Publication Center at Baroda, the Adivasis Academy at Tejgarh, the DNP Rights Action Group, and several other initiatives. Later, he initiated the largest ever survey of languages in history, carried out with the help of nearly 3,000 volunteers and published in 50 multilingual volumes. Led by Devy, the People's Linguistic Survey of India has researched and documented 780 living Indian languages in 2010. G.N Devy was awarded Padma Shri on January 26, 2014, in recognition of his work with denotified and nomadic tribes education and his work on dying out languages. He was awarded the Sahitya Akademi Award for After Amnesia and the South Writers Foundation Award for his work with denotified tribes. He has also won the reputed Prince Claus Award in 2003, awarded by the Prince Claus Fund for his work for the conservation of the history, languages, and views of oppressed communities in the Indian state of Gujarat. His Marathi book, Vanaprasth, has received 6 awards, including the Durga Bhagwat Memorial Award and the Maharashtra Foundation Award. Along with Lakshman Gaikwad and Mahasweta Devi, he is one of the founders of the Denotified and Nomadic Tribes Rights Action Group. He won the 2011 Lingua Paxa Prize for his work for the preservation of linguistic diversity. Devy returned his Sahitya Akademi Award in October 2015 as a mark of protest and in solidarity with other writers who see a threat to Indian democracy, secularism, and freedom of expression, and growing intolerance towards differences of opinion. In response to the growing intolerance and murders of several intellectuals in India, he launched the Dakshinayan movement of artists, writers, and intellectuals. In order to lead this movement and to initiate his work on mapping the world's linguistic diversity, he moved to Dharwad in 2016. The Dakshinayana movement follows the ideas of Mahatma Gandhi and Dr. Baba Sahib Ambedkar. The movement has spread to several states in India such as Gujarat, Maharashtra, Karnataka, Goa, Telangana, West Bengal, Uttarakhand, Punjab and Delhi. So it is an absolute honor on our part to have such an eminent personality amongst us today. Now, I am happy and honored also to introduce Professor Shankar Prasad Sinha, who is a retired professor of English, Vidyasagar University. A former Commonwealth Fellow at King's College London, Professor Sinha served also as the Dean of the Faculty of Arts and Commerce at Vidyasagar University. Interested primarily in literary theory and criticism, he has authored, edited, and translated 7 volumes. Professor Indranil Acharya, who is also going to be in conversation with Professor G.N Devy, is a professor in the Department of English, Vidyasagar University, and an ex-head. He completed 2 UGC projects as principal investigator on Australian and Indian indigenous traditions in 2008 and 2015 respectively. Dr. Acharya had been the deputy coordinator of the UGC SAP program in the Department of English from 2009 to 2014 and state coordinator of the People's Linguistic Survey of India since 2009. He worked on the documentation and translation of the oral and folk literature of Dalit and tribal communities in West Bengal. Dr. Acharya has also completed 1 UGC innovative research project in 2017 on the endangered tribal languages of South Bengal districts. Dr. Acharya's authored, edited, and translated books are Beyond the Sense of Belonging, Race, Class, and Gender in the Poetry of Yeats and Eliot, 2011, Survival and Other Stories, Anthology of Bangla Dalit Stories, 2012, Towards Social Change, Essays on Dalit Literature, 2014, Listen to the Flames, Texts and Readings from the Virgins, 2016, Poshimbangal Bhasha in 2017, Sriti Bilobel Pore, which is a translation of G.N Devy's After Amnesia, also in 2017, and The Languages of West Bengal in 2019. 2 more publications, one on translation by Sahitya Akademi and another on endangered folk performance traditions by Springer, are in press. He is also the chief editor of Janojati Darpan, the only international multilingual journal from Bengal on tribal studies. Dr. Acharya has presented his research papers in Bridgewater Conference, Virginia, US, and Lancaster University, United Kingdom in 2015. He had also been a visiting professor to the Department of English, University of Delhi in 2019-20 academic session. This is indeed a very special day for us to have amongst us such luminous and eminent personalities. Now, I would like to request Professor Shankar Prasad Sinha to initiate the proceedings. Sir.
So thank you.
We can hear you. You can start.
Oh, okay. Okay. You can hear me. Okay. So, thank you so much. So
yes, sir, we can hear you. You are perfectly audible.
They are listening to me. They can hear me.
So we are live, sir.
Yes, sir, you are perfectly audible. No problem.
Okay. Thank you so much. Sir, I would like to put my first question like this. In one of your interviews, you said that for my MA, I took a paper on epic in which I studied Homer, Dante, Milton, and Sri Aurobindo's Savitri because it was written in English. There was no mention of the Mahabharata, probably because it was considered theology or folklore. Now my question is, do you find any change of mindset in this regard in the members of the Curriculum Development Committee of the UGC? Because as you know that they have now included the Mahabharata and certain other texts, old Indian classics, into the syllabus at the undergraduate level. So, do you think that there has been a change of mindset?
See, Shakespeare is an exact contemporary of the Marathi poet Tukaram. And Tukaram, though not known outside India, not so well known outside Marathi, has been quite a little genius. But Shakespeare is seen as standard literature, and Tukaram is seen as a saint poet to be studied when the Board of Studies shows that grace. So there is inclusion of Indian texts from various Indian languages belonging to the medieval times, but we have still not developed sufficient confidence to base an entire MA program on literature available to us in translation, or an MA program in English where the students write the examination in English, but they study Indian poets in their own languages. There was a time in England before 1880s, to be precise, before 1885, when the University of London introduced its first syllabus for English literature. Students used to study Latin texts and write answers, examination answers in English, and they were still given a degree. So there is a shift. There is a significant shift. In the 1950s, no Indian writer was ever taught. R.K. Narayan lived in Mysore, but Mysore University did not teach R.K. Narayan well until R.K. Narayan was introduced at the University of Leeds in 1963. So there is a shift, but the shift is a tokenism and not a radical change.
Thank you, sir. In fact, sir, I'm in a way overwhelmed when I meet you on this virtual platform for this conversation session, because we have been working for a long time. It's a long journey which began way back in 2010, to be more precise, February 2010. And the way we have been inspired by you to look into the dying languages and cultures of India, particularly of West Bengal, our state, it has been a great lesson for all of us. In fact, the impact of People's Linguistic Survey of India had been quite massive, especially on the rural universities of West Bengal. Okay, let alone the other leading universities like Jadavpur. Okay, I can tell you that universities like Vidyasagar, Bankura, and Purulia, Sidhu Kanu Birsa University, Purulia, have come up, in a great way to preserve the local indigenous languages and cultures, and we can relate this development directly to the impact of the People's Linguistic Survey of India. So, and you will be very happy to know, sir, that in our university, we had already begun that UGC SAP DRS program for the documentation and translation of the tribal literature, oral traditions of tribal communities since 2009. And when we got the opportunity to work with you and Bhasha, it was really a liberating and enlightening experience for all of us in the Department of English at Vidyasagar University and also in other neighboring departments in other universities. And right now, I can tell you that as a result of this People's Linguistic Survey of India, and as a result of a very successful first phase of the UGC SAP DRS and an equally successful second phase of UGC SAP DRS 2, okay, we have already introduced documentation recording and in a way cultural interpretation of the various tribal communities, okay, indigenous groups in the hinterland of Vidyasagar University. That is three major districts now of West Bengal: Purbo Medinipur, Paschim Medinipur, and Jhargram. You will be happy to know that in the university and also in other colleges, Midnapore College is one of those colleges where there is one entire course in the first semester, course 105, dedicated to the documentation of the various oral, literary, and performing traditions of the local tribal communities, and it consists of 50 marks, one full course. And students regularly visit various tribal communities, meet them, and prepare their project report every year. Okay, every year the first semester students do it. Now, my request to you is to share, a few things of your experience as a field researcher. When for the first time you met the indigenous people in their homeland during your first survey of languages and cultures of the marginalized communities, because I think that that will inspire the young learners, okay, tremendously. If you can speak on that.
Well, Professor Acharya, I'm very impressed by what your department is doing, and I envy your students. I wish I could study course 105, but in your university. But I must confess that from my school days, I was not a good student. I regret, I repent, but my attitude to my school was not very desirable attitude. I like the world outside the school, always. And this habit of mine continued till my MA. The first time I did, and I did another MA because I had not done one MA properly, though I got a first class there. I thought I had not done good justice to what I was expected to study, because I studied all other books except the books that I was required to study. Now, when I joined the Baroda University as a young lecturer, I had just returned from England, and people expected me to become a social creature there, mixing and mingling with the mighty citizens of Baroda from the old Baroda state. But my mind was not there. I used to take I had a scooter, a very old scooter with me, two-wheeler, and I used to go out with my wife, who is a very eminent scientist, to remote villages every Saturday and Sunday. And we became great friends with the Adivasis living there. And we thought that their way of knowing the world had a very significant amount of learning for me. So I tried to uneducate myself, though I used to read quite a lot. I mean, from the age of 17, I had made it a rule to read 300 pages at least every day, and I did not break that rule to the age of 42. When I got the Sahitya Akademi award for an English book, I stopped reading books altogether. But these tribals attracted me quite a lot. I found that they have an innate wisdom, a worldview, which I did not know about. And though I had gone to when I went to them, I had a PhD and 2 MAs. After going to the Adivasis and after I started living with them, spending more time with them, talking to them, learning from them, I realized that I did not know enough about the world. That there was another world waiting for me to discover, to learn from. And that's what pulled me with a very great force to the Adivasis. As far as documenting the languages of these communities all over the country, I was aware, constantly aware. I was absolutely clear that I should not be documenting languages of the Adivasis. I wanted them to say something about their languages. And so in my workshops, I consciously avoided calling very learned linguists and consciously started involving the local singers, the storytellers, the old people, the children, the school teacher, the postman, bus driver, and so on. And what they gathered was a great wealth. And in fact, it is all that material which eventually took the shape of the Linguistic Survey of India. What you have done with Bengal, your Bangla volume is superb because it has all the innate wisdom of the Adivasi communities, the nomadic communities put together. And that's a wide spectrum of knowledge. If we did not collect those things at that time, a few years from now, one would be regretting that the things are lost and they're not there. They're gone. Like Arun Kolatkar's butterfly in his Jezuri poem. So the experiences have been many. I can easily write 7 or 8 novels based on those experiences. I've met some of the worst nuts in the journeys, and I also met some of the most moving characters in different parts of the country, from Andaman to Kashmir, from Assam to Karnataka. Everywhere I went, I received friendship, warmth, but what I received more than these, more valuable than these, was a great amount of learning that the Adivasis have and that we have ignored. The learning is not learning as it is in the universities. For them, life is the university and the world is the blackboard. And they learn from that blackboard and that university. And they carry it forward to the next generation. That's how they survived for the. There has been human habitation in this subcontinent for the last 45,000 years, as genetics has shown. And they have survived because they have turned the world into their blackboard and life into their books, their library. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, sir, it's a very enlightening kind of experience to listen to your forays into the tribal belt. We have also seen you in our place talking about this kind of things. Now, as we all know that 19th century represents the heyday of European colonialism, more precisely British colonialism. Now, wherever the British went, they carried their own language. It is stated now that the greatest commodity the British exports to the world is their language and literature. But the point is, because of this prevalence of the language, because of its weight, wherever it went, think of US, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, it destroyed the native languages. But when we come to India, our tribal people continued to speak their own tongue, and so did the mainland Indians. And my point is that how far the tribal languages really give a certain kind of strength to the Indian regional languages like say Bangla, Marathi, Gujarati or others. Was there a kind of what we call reciprocal influence between the tribal languages and the mainstream regional languages? And how did the regional mainstream languages continue to survive the onslaught of the British education? Particularly, as you know that in those days, even in the ICS, when English was not taught in England, even in the ICS, the examiners had to write an answer on 1,000 marks on English literature.
You're right, Professor.
Now
Yes.
the question is that in spite of such kind of pressure of the language and such a kind of prestige that was instilled to it, we all know about Macaulay's famous statement. The point is that in spite of all this, how did the Indian regional languages and particularly the tribal languages continue to remain intact in their own way? I mean, they in a way thrived through
Well,
this kind of interaction with.
when two languages encounter each other, the encounter is a fairly complex process, and it is not as simple as like my going to a club where somebody is sitting, that person vacating the chair, and I go and occupy that chair. When a language replacing another language is not that mechanical. In Africa and in Asia, the English language was added to the native languages but did not remove the native languages, or did not remove them altogether. Whereas in North America and Australia, the replacement was complete. The simple fact was that the numbers that the Europeans took to North America were larger than the numbers of the Native Americans, the American Indians, the indigenous people. And there, the Europeans, the French, the British, and also people from Holland, the Dutch, they decided to exterminate those people. They used weapons to kill them, and they were just physically removed from the scene. It was the same that happened with Australia. Whereas in India, the encounter was not of that kind. The British came here first for commerce. They landed here in the year 1600. They established the first company in 1609. They somehow got the permit to do trading even in Delhi in 1617. By the time they came to the Battle of Plassey, already 150 years had passed. The Indian language scene here was was constituted by languages with very old history. I mean, Tamil was in existence for nearly 2000 years before the British landed here. Tamil has today a history of 2500 years. And if you were to look at the Prakrut on which the Bangla is based and go to the Proto-Prakrut, which would probably be the mother of the ancient Assamese, the ancient Oriya, the ancient Bangla, the ancient Magadhi, and so on. A complicated story. That language had seen it all previously, had encountered other languages and learned how to absorb other languages without getting distracted. So the story of the English language coming to India was a complex story, and Indian languages had in them a historical experience of encountering other languages and accommodating them. So we accepted so many English words, and the English language accepted so many Indian words. For instance, a word like paria, the outsider, is straight from the Latin word of para, or the Sanskrit word para. One can cite literally thousands of words that Indian languages have given to the English language. But did the tribal languages give any words to the English language? The answer is not so many words, because it is not a linguistic question in the case of the tribals, but a political question. The tribals are those people in India who do not belong to the caste fold, and people belonging to the caste fold alone had formed the state structure, whereas tribals did not create the institution of kingship, and therefore they remained as societies without a state. Now, that actually helped them because while the British signed pacts and treaties with the defeated kings, they could not have signed treaty or a pact with the entire community. I mean, with the Gonds. If there are 60 lakh Gonds, the British officer could not have gone to 60,000 persons signing the pact. It is these people who remained outside the framework of the British Raj for a very long time. It is only in the 1870s that for the first time the British listed all such communities, and it is almost 30 years later, 40 years later, that someone like Warrior Elvin, who was influenced by Mahatma Gandhi, decided to go to the Adivasis and find out what kind of people they were and write about them, document their songs and so on. But for Warrior Elvin's work, India would have remained ignorant of tribals for much longer than it did previously. So the tribal languages in English have not impacted each other so much, uh, which is a fact.
But the tribals wrote Shiv Vishwanathan. When he consulted the Cariappa papers, the tribals had all along a kind of independence. He has referred to a very interesting incident where there was a kind of meeting among, say, Nehru, Patel, and S. Jaipal Singh of the Jharkhand party at that time.
Yes.
And in the course of the discussion, Nehru once stated that I will have to talk to you later. And Jaipal Singh reacted sharply, stating that, Mr. Prime Minister, you will have to talk with us, not talk to us. So, as you say, that they had been outside the mainstream. So, even after the independence, was there a kind of attitude?
Absolutely, Professor Sinha. This, before the independence, their participation in independence struggle has not been recorded in our standard history. And after independence also, after giving a schedule in the constitution for them, uh, the schedule status in the constitution for them, they were kept outside, and in many cases quite deliberately. I mean, look at where the worst mining activity happens. Mining mafia goes and exploits it is in the tribal area. If you look at the numbers in the entire university system in the country today, whereas the tribal population in India is about 9%, the presence of tribals at the higher level of education is still 1.7%. That is, they have got just 1/10 of the dues that they ought to actually. Actually, a democracy means the stronger one helps the weaker one, so that the entire society becomes equal. Because to create a legal structure which expects everybody to be equal for unequal people can become injustice. It is like setting a race between a weak person and a strong person without providing the necessary help for the weak person to compete on equal footing. So it is true that the denotified and nomadic communities whose plight is even far worse, and the Adivasis whose situation is far from happy in this country, they have remained outside the ambit of benefits that the others have got. I'm not saying that the others are in a very happy, but the situation of the Adivasis deserves a lot more compassion, a lot more understanding, a lot more respect from us. Thank you.
Okay, sir.
Sir, your engagement with Adivasis, with tribal languages and cultures, also generates a question in my mind, especially regarding your great experience in running Dhol magazine that was dedicated to the study of tribal languages, oral literature and culture, especially of Gujarat. And in Dhol magazine, we find that it was published in 11 languages at one point of time, and it did not have any ads, and it was earning enough from sales to stay in print. Now, that was really a great achievement when we think of our own small endeavor, Janjati Darpan, which began in 2017, and which is also dedicated to the tribal scholars, community members, authors, researchers, and students. But we find it very difficult, really, to generate funds to sustain this initiative because somehow we find that the mainstream publishers are not very keen to take up Janjati Darpan for publication. So I would like to hear from you. In fact, all of us would like to hear from you your experience of running the Dhol journal, successfully for many years.
See, 1996, I left the Baroda University. I was a professor there, and I decided to just walk out of the university and start to work with the Adivasis. But I am a very hesitant person. I am very shy, to be quite frank. So I did not want to go to a tribal village and impose my ideas and start work and then create a visiting card and director of some academy and give some interview in newspaper. I wanted to be quiet. I wanted to learn from them. So the first thing I did was, the salary I received for my last month's work in the university, I decided to organize, using that money, I decided to organize a workshop for many tribals in southern Gujarat and northern Maharashtra at a lovely place called Saputara. It's a hilltop. They came there and they had brought musical instruments with them. I wanted to ask them questions about their literature. They said, "This is our literature." Now, this was beyond my grasp, because in the classroom where I had studied or where I had taught, till then, I was at that time 45 years old, and nearly for 30 years in those classrooms, literature meant books or things to do with books, or books about books, or talk about books, but not talk about a trumpet, a harmonium, an accordion, a bulbul, or mouth organ. Nothing of the kind. Even when Shakespeare was taught, and in Shakespeare's plays, there was actually music. My teacher did not play that music for me anytime, nor did I, as a teacher, do it for my students. Because like वो धोबी होते हैं ना इस्त्री बनाने वाले, as a teacher I used to iron out literature and make literature only work. Now I learned from tribals that literature is a three-dimensional thing. It is words, it is sound, and it is silence. I wanted to put this across for the world. So I thought it's good to ask them to do all of this, to write what they want to write the way they want to write when they want to write. And that's why we gave the name of a musical instrument, dhol. They liked it, and they contributed to it in an oral way. Somebody had to write it in the Gujarati script, and then after it was printed, a copy was taken to the village and read out in their language. So the script then was pushed to the background. We use the script for inscribing, printing, and carrying at a distance a work of literature, a work of composition, a composition or a song or a poem or a story or a memory of the tribals. Because this was being read out in the village, many villagers knew what it was. And so they were curious. And when they were told that their language, their speech was being written, they felt very excited because the speech was being written for the first time. The languages did not have scripts. And so they were ready to buy a copy at 10 rupees per copy. We used to print about 7 to 800 copies, and when the magazine, the issue came out, generally on the first or the second day, all copies were sold. So sometimes we had to reprint the number. This happened in one language, this happened in another language, this happened in out of those 11 or 12 languages, this happened in 7 languages, but this did not happen in 4 languages because the people speaking those 4 languages were really very poor, and I did not expect them to pay for the copy. So we used to cross subsidize. Where we got more money from one language, we used to put that for another language. And whenever there was a shortage, I made it a rule that I used to charge for my lectures outside because I used to get invitations. Or if I wrote, I used to collect the royalties from my publishers and spend that money for bringing out the magazine. So it survived without any advertisement. What you are doing, Janajati Darpan, is a marvelous work. I remember Mahashweta Devi used to bring out a little magazine
Vartika.
and Vartika, devoted to experiences of ordinary people. And I think great literature is born out of ordinariness of life and not greatness of life. What is born out of greatness of life is a very boring literature. It can be coffee table attraction, but not something which will stir your soul or heart. You're doing a very good job. I wish, I hope the students and teachers who are listening to this should not listen to what I'm saying merely as entertainment, but actually step forward and pay some 50 or 100 rupees to buy a copy of your magazine. It is easily possible given the kind of incomes that we have now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sir,
Yes.
like all creative thinkers, you are also not confined to one particular area. We have come to learn that you are now working on a volume, The Question of Silence.
Yes.
And the volume is reported to be about 3 kinds of silences. Number 1, the silence created by the state terror. Number
Yes.
2, the silence created by people not talking, but people digitally entering into each other's heads. And the third, the silence that is created by the decline of language across the globe. Now, I would request you to kindly elaborate on these 3 kinds of silences and elaborate on the total, total project that you have in mind, the total idea that you have in mind about the
Yeah,
importance of silence.
I'm trying to show you a book. Can you see it?
Yes,
Yes.
I can
That's
see
right,
it.
sir.
Everybody can.
It
Obviously.
is published, The Question of Silence.
Congratulations, sir. Congratulations.
Oh, thank you, thank you. It has already come out, sir.
And it is getting translated in Kannada and Marathi now.
That's
The
great.
first kind of silence is the silence that the process of evolution is imposing on human languages. Humans are losing languages in a big way. The second kind of silence I speak about is the silence which technology has brought in. You know that now nobody speaks to nobody. Everybody is engaged in one's mobile phone. Speech for social communication is a casualty. Even in a family, people don't find time to speak to each other. They're more engrossed in their mobiles. So this changing society, which is network society, but not a social society, not the society made of animals that Rousseau had defined man as a social animal. Today, man is a technologically aided network animal, no longer a social animal. It is imposing a silence on us. And the third kind of silence is the silence that the dictatorial regimes all over the world are imposing on their citizens. Last week, maybe about 10 days, I wrote, a week back, I wrote in the Telegraph a middle article called The Question of Questioning. If you question the governments, if media questions the government, media persons are being killed. If you question the government, you are seen as a traitor, as a Deshadrohi. And because of that fear, even when people have things to say, they're not speaking. With the kind of examination regime that the UGC has announced yesterday, in older times, in another time, there would have been students in millions in the streets protesting.
Yeah.
But today we don't see them. I'm not saying that protest alone is good, but I'm saying that expression of one's views without fear, without any intimidation from the regimes is healthy for a democracy. So I speak of all these three silences in that book. And somebody has to, it is a paradox. You cannot speak about silence because speaking violates silence. But I'm speaking about silence because unless somebody speaks, the others won't gather courage to speak. And therefore, as a man close to death in my age, I must learn to speak when it is necessary to speak. Yeah. Yes, please.
So the point
Thank you,
is
sir.
that the kind. Okay.
Yes, sir. Please continue, Professor Sinha.
The point is that the last kind of silence that you are talking about, it's not confined to one particular country. As you can see
No,
that
it is spread
throughout the
all over.
globe, yeah, there
It is
are
in Russia,
political
China, Turkey, even US. Everywhere. It's a global phenomenon.
US, Spain, you think of even Brazil, what is happening all around is that the political power which wields the power in the country ultimately becomes intolerant to any kind of opposition. I mean, not merely opposition, not even opposition, just a kind of slightly different kind of thing which they do not like. So that is
Difference.
one kind of.
They're intolerant of difference and diversity. Yes.
Yeah, so that is the point. And the second kind of silence that we have been talking about, or the point is that even in the family, we are not talking to each other. But the point is that we send messages. So it's a kind of digital image of our talk. Now, the question is that digital image gets transferred to our brain. Now, in that way, is there a possibility of our mind and brain getting attuned to not hearing sounds?
Yes, Professor Sinha, we are very rapidly gravitating towards a virtual world. Where the virtual will become more real than the real. The physical is less important in future. The virtual is even today my physical existence, my bodily existence, is not complete truth unless I get a digital number tagged to it. Unless I have an Aadhaar card, I no longer am a citizen. So the Aadhaar card is the foundation of my citizenship. That is a virtual number, becomes the foundation of a physical reality. Therefore, in future, humans might move to a virtual existence, a virtual law, a virtual knowledge, a virtual love and hatred. People will murder each other virtually, fall in love with each other virtually. People might cry virtually. People might just sleep virtually and wake up virtually. While the body is still asleep, the image might wake up and do its duty. And I think we are entering a new kind of world, which for me is a terrifying world. But it is a reality we have to accept and cope with.
Sir, we have a
There is a question from
yes,
someone
yes.
saying, is it
From our head of the department, sir. From the
okay.
head of the department of
Oh,
English, Vidyasagar University, Dr. Jolly
oh, I
Das.
see. Oh, Jolly
Right.
Das. Professor Jolly Das, it is
Hmm.
not necessary to have their own script in order that languages become languages. I will give an example. The English language does not have a script of its own, even today. It is using the Roman script. But
Yes.
therefore, we do not say English is not a language. So Adivasi languages do not have their own scripts. They can be scripted. In the world, there are 7,000 languages, but there are not more than 300 scripts. And all those 7,000 get written within those 300 scripts. Yeah. Uh, so that's my answer.
Yes.
Can I say something at this
Yes,
stage?
yes,
Within a
yes,
few minutes, I'll be taking your leave.
yes.
Uh, there is a question that I think there is a message. I will respond to that. I want to congratulate all of you for the kind of work that you are doing.
Before a conclusion,
Midnapore is a very
conclusion.
important, very important cultural center. When Vidyasagar's statue was broken in Calcutta, I wrote an article about. I felt very deeply hurt by that act in Calcutta. I wrote about. But Vidyasagar's statue really is what you are doing. Your work is Vidyasagar statue, and I hope you will continue doing it. As from an old man, let me extend all the very best wishes for your work in future, and in post corona world, when there is a possibility of physical travel, I'll come to your city and spend more time with your faculty and students. But at
Thank you,
this
sir.
juncture, I must take your leave. Uh, I have maybe 2 or 3 minutes. There is a note, sir. In the 1950s, Nehru wrote a letter to then Assam governor expressing his desire to create an all India service, especially to serve the tribal people in a better way. He said that existing administrative service officials don't have it. It was during that period when Arunachal Pradesh was under GOI but did not have control over the area. Which is right. Nehru's attitude to tribals was shaped by the influence of Ariel Elvin's thinking about tribals. And Nehru wanted the uh, policy of least interference and wanted to send officers who would not disturb the tribal way of life but allow them to continue with their way of life. The Nehruvian era was a great era in many ways. It also was deeply problematic era in many other ways. The era of every Superman becomes problematic. Uh, Even a democratic Superman. So you are right, and I will write to you at length about this. But at this moment, I must say goodbye. Bye bye.
Okay, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you very
See
much.
you again, sir. Take care and stay safe, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. Hello, doctor. Hello. Ha.
So let's call it a day.
Oh,
Okay, let us call it a day then. Shoykot, okay, you announce it formally. Shoykot, are you there? No.
Yes, yes, I'm there.
Shoykot, please conclude.
Yeah, yeah.
So, time now for me to offer formal vote of thanks. What an honor it has been, what a privilege it has been for us to host such an inspiring and very thought-provoking, challenging in some extent conversation between you three. It was such an honor to have among us Professor G.N Devy, who has a very very tight schedule, and we know that because he was in a session from 4 to 5, then he has joined us, then again from 6 o'clock he has another session. So we are extremely grateful that he could find a little time out of his immensely busy schedule for us. It has been an honor, literally an honor, to listen to him. So our heartfelt thanks to Professor G.N Devy, and our heartfelt thanks to Professor Sankar Singha and Professor Indranil Acharya. They are like our guides and mentors. Anytime we have any problem, we just run to them, and they are always eager to help us out. And so we thank. This is a very cordial thanks on our part to both of you for again taking your time out for us and to enrich us with your inputs. So from the behalf of Midnapore College, we thank you. And we also thank our principal sir, Dr. Gopal Chandra Bera, for patronizing this initiative, without whose support and help, such initiative like this could not have been finalized, could not have been performed. I extend my thanks to Professor Tanmoy Kundu for the initiatives he keeps taking for arranging such lectures, online lectures, for enabling us to at least meet on this virtual platform. I thank everyone, and I could see many comments being posted. There were other questions too. Sadly, we did not have the time to take those questions. I thank everyone who has listened to us, either on YouTube or on Facebook. Extremely grateful for your support and cooperation. And I wish you all the best, and I wish Dr. Acharya and Dr. Professor Shankar Kumar Sinha all the best. And again, once more, we thank you from the core of our heart. And so let's call it a day. Thank you.
Thank you, Shekhar. Thank you.
Thank you.